Fantasy Oddcast, starring host used to be sober and guests Kazap and Feta Cheese. Welcome to the Fantasy Oddcast.
And welcome to week 2 of the Fantasy Oddcast. I'm your host, used to be sober. With me again, we have our resident guests, Feta Cheese and KZAP 711. Welcome, guys. Welcome. We are, I'd say, about how many hours away from our own fantasy draft here. Most of you guys have already drafted. Some of you have still some drafts left because the season starts on Thursday. Today's segment is going to be less about draft advice, since probably a lot of you guys already have your team set. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of these last minute moves that have happened. We're going to talk a little bit also about what we think. There's some muddled teams as far as backfields, wide receiver core, even maybe quarterback situations that you're not sure who's going to be the one to have on your team too. And we're talking great options for waiver wire pickups down the road. And then most of all, we're going to talk the season opener for Thursday night and want to get our opinions on who's going to feed and who's going to fast on Thursday night. So let's kick it off. We're going to have a segment called Over and Under, where we are going to give an over-under situation or stat line and talk about our opinions. And if you happen to be watching this live, feel free to chime in on your thoughts and your over and under predictions or questions. So, Chris, let's start us off.
Sure. So I just want to throw out this stat that the Washington Redskins last year on third and goal situations ran the ball 55% of the time. With the addition of Adrian Peterson, the loss of juice, my prediction is that we're going to see Adrian Peterson around 10 touchdowns this season. So I'm saying over under 10 touchdowns for Adrian Peterson.
I'm gonna say we're gonna get the over on that. We look at somebody like LeGarrette Blount. Yeah, Adrian Peterson may not have the stature of LeGarrette Blount, but LeGarrette Blount comes in, snatches up a ton of goal line work, which I foresee Adrian Peterson being able to do better than Kelly, better than Perrine. The only thing that may keep him down towards the 10 or maybe a little bit below is in these red zone situations for touchdowns where you get a lot of Alex Smith play action quarterback keeps, which he's known to do, and he did in Kansas City a lot too as well, and the ability for him to pass to a tight end in that red zone offense too, so that, you know, with the healthy Jordan Reed, that could change a little bit. But I will say the bold prediction of an over on this one, because I do like his ability to hit the hole hard, get in the end zone, and he's a guy who just wants to go out there and win, and I think he's going to instill that on the Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, he's still averaging in the preseason this year around like 5 yards per carry. So he gets a first and goal from the 3. You know, we can expect to see a lot of like him pounding it in. I don't see him having a year like he did with breaking 2,000 yards, but I could see the touchdown number getting up there. Nick, What are your thoughts?
I'm going to take the other side of it. I think he's an old man, and that he's going to break down and not be able to play a full season. I think, like in the past, we've seen guys like Jamal Charles, older backs, try to come in, and DeMarco Murray too in past years, who just aren't able to take a full workload. Last year he did, and so did Marshawn Lynch. I just don't know if we can definitely expect 10 touchdowns this year. Like, I'm going to take the other side of that, or that he's productive as he was.
I understand that he's going to be at the 2,000-yard mark, and I mean, we saw DeMarco still maintain a bulk of the carries last year before his retirement.
He's out of football now, though. He doesn't even have a job.
Yeah, but health status too. When DeMarco was taking that big workload, it definitely affected him.
I don't see Adrian Peterson dominating and getting 30 touches a game, but on the goal line work, I can see him getting work in there.
Based on what's your
carries?
Based on your confidence level, where would you take him right now?
I mean, I'm not reaching anywhere above the 6th round to go get a guy like him, but it could be a sneaky guy to go later in the draft. I mean, at least for the people that haven't drafted yet.
Yeah.
To go later on. I mean, he can get it. listen, the guy can be productive. He's a downhill runner and he always falls forward.
Are you
So
more
if you're,
excited
if you're
about?
talking about goal line carries, like look at LeGarrette Blount. He had 18 touchdowns a couple years ago with New England.
Mhm.
He was not getting 20 touches a game. It's not like he was dominating the workload there, but he's getting the goal line carries.
But he's converting those carries to touchdowns, which is what.
Yeah.
If he gets the goal line work, I see AP being able to kind of follow that blueprint that LeGarrette Blount the Patriots had. That's what I think.
Exactly.
And but that's if he gets the goal line work, and that's the big if. But so understandable, Nick, on your side saying under makes sense, but
just some concerns there, taking the other side of it.
Sure.
Well, let me throw this over and under at you guys. Let's talk Christian McCaffrey. Everybody's talking about the workload he's going to get, that he's going to be the workhorse over there, and I don't disagree. But what are your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey over and under 1,600 total all-purpose yards? I'm talking at least 800 yards rushing, 800 yards, 800 yards rushing, 800 yards receiving. That's my prediction on the season, and I'll take his stats up for you while you guys talk about it.
So I think he's going to fall around somewhere around there. For the sake of argument, I'll take the over on that. I think he's going to get a bulk of the carries in the receiving game. He's extremely explosive. We've seen what he can do as a receiver. He's probably the most talented receiver on that team as a running back. He can run any route. So I think they're going to be a little more creative with him this year than they were last year. I think he's going to have a better rapport with Cam to trust him on some routes. So I could see him maybe not 800, but somewhere like maybe 1,600. I think he's at 1,600 total yards or above that this season.
Okay, and let me throw this out there before you put a stamp on that one. Christian McCaffrey last year, 117 rushing attempts for 435 yards. Okay, he had 80 receptions last year for 650 yards, and that is not include the 100 yards in the postseason game he had. So total, that does count. That's for regular season, not for the fantasy.
So about 1,100 total yards last year.
Yeah, about 1,100 total yards last year. So I'm saying 1,600 total yards this year, over or under.
It's reasonable depending on how many more carries he gets, because he didn't even get 500 yards rushing last year.
Yeah. His average rushing was 3.7, which is on the low end of a starting running back. Like a top tier running back.
Do you understand that's a huge jump in 16 games to go from 400 yards to 1,000 yards rushing? Where's he going to make it up? Because he already had like a huge year last year with almost 700 yards receiving and like 80 catching like 80 balls. Did he catch like 80 balls?
But 150 touches,
117 rushes.
So you got to hope for like another 100 rushes.
Okay,
another
so he's
400 yards. You think so? You think he carries the ball 250 times?
But that means I think he carries the ball at least 180 times this season. Because I'm thinking on average, I mean, think about that. He had 117 rushes last year.
Yeah,
that's about 10 each week. That's very low. That's very little.
Yeah.
So that number's got to go. But I'm not even saying he rushes 1,000 yards. I don't care how he gets those 1,600. I'm putting the baseline that he gets up to 800 rushing and he hits the 800 mark receiving for sure, because that's 150 more yards receiving. That's it. So that's my opinion. Like that's my over and under. I think he hits 1,600 yards.
Okay.
So Chris, you're saying over?
I'm saying over. I'm going to go over.
Okay. And Nick, you're saying under? You think? You think it's hard to hit that number and make up on the rushing side?
I still think in total, he probably gets close to there. Maybe not 1,600, but like just below it.
And for those listening and watching, the fantasy implications, obviously for running back and receiving, both in receiving yards and rushing yards, in most average leagues, standard leagues, you're going to have 10 yards per reception, 10 yards per rush to get you that point. So 1,600 total yards is pretty good point totals for you at the end of the season, regardless of how he gets it. So what do we got, Nick? Give us an over and under. What are you thinking?
Well, mainly I bring this up because I know we have a very avid Jets fan in the broadcast here, but I'm going to say we see Josh McCown before the middle of the season. And give me your over or under on that.
You mean
We see Josh McCown come back, barring everything's confirmed and Darnold starts off the year. I'm gonna say we see
by week
we see
8?
them we see them throw it back to McCown. Yeah, I think so.
By week 8.
So as of right now, I don't think they've made an announcement, an official announcement on who the starter will be week 1.
It's on the depth chart.
I mean, on the depth chart, Sam Darnold's there. We can assume that he's going to probably start the season with the trade of Teddy Bridgewater.
Right.
So Sam Darnold will probably start the season. That being said, I don't think that I think they're going to ride and die by him. They're going to let him grow on the job, and they're not going to pull him. We're probably going to see some mixed. If the Jets are doing really bad, we might see in the second half of games Josh McCown come in. But in terms of a starter, I think if they're going to start game 1 with Darnold, barring an injury, we're going to see Darnold all 16 games.
Okay. So you're going to go over.
I'm going to take the over as well. But my reasoning, I do agree with Chris's reasoning, but my reasoning also being, look at the division now. I feel like there's only one contender in that division that are with the Jets, and that's obviously the Patriots. And the Patriots are probably going to win that division. That being said, they're still playing Miami and Buffalo twice this year. That's 4 games out of this whole season that it gives almost kind of like scrimmage opportunity for Darnold. Miami's garbage. The Buffalo just went downhill from last year. Yeah, they have a good defense, but when they're on the field the whole game, it's not going to matter. They're going to run down quickly. So I think this is a perfect year for them to just throw him out there to the Wolves, get him, game ready and going. And maybe he has an okay year. Maybe he has kind of like a Jared Goff first year and not a Carson Wentz first year, where Goff was an accessory to the Rams' success, but not necessarily the spearhead of the success. So I think Darnold does a good job. And if he becomes a good game manager and then uses his arm, I see him as being almost like a Carson Palmer type quarterback for the Jets. He's going to have good stats. He's going to have good numbers. But I think that's why I'm going to take the over, is because they didn't draft this kid for nothing, and he, as they call him, NFL ready. And when you say NFL ready, throw him out there. He can fall flat on his face, but the only way you'll know if he falls or soars is if you throw him out there. And they're not in a position in that division, unless they're in wild card position, to have to really push for wins, because you still have the Patriots in that division.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to rush to get him in by any means. He's definitely going to have a learning year, but I think by all the reports out of camp, by all the interviews with the other quarterbacks and the quarterback coach for the Jets, he's a professional. He's not letting people punk him in practice or in the huddle. I think he's going to command the huddle really well. I think he's going to be a game manager in their first year. I think he can evolve into something better than that. He has definitely the skill set to do it, but I don't think they're gonna. If they're gonna start the season with him, they're gonna finish the season with him and learn. They wasted draft picks to trade up to the 6th spot to get him, and then they just traded away a perfectly good option in Teddy Bridgewater to give this guy a shot. So I see him starting the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, those are our over and under opportunities here. Unless there's anything else you guys have for that, let's move on to our next segment. I think the biggest thing I want to look at this next segment, which is called our last minute moves. And this is going to include injuries. It's going to include cuts. It's going to include trades, anything like that was done last minute, and what the implications are fantasy-wise for these players or for the teams, because some of them don't involve the players themselves. And I want to start off, let's talk a little bit about this Jerick McKinnon injury. Nick, kick it off. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it definitely presents an opportunity for you to look at the other guys there that are going to soak up that volume now with Alfred Morris. And I guess Matt Breida as well, but I'm more interested in Alfred Morris because of the relationship with Kyle Shanahan and just what he's shown in preseason. He still has some ability and tread left on the tires, and obviously it's a tough break for the spark athlete Jerick McKinnon.
And you're contradicting yourself a little bit, because Bev 10 minutes ago, you said that Adrian Peterson doesn't have juice in the tank. Alfred Morris has not been productive the last couple of years in the NFL.
That's
And
not true.
It is
When
true.
was he last in Dallas? Because he was very productive in Dallas.
3 years ago.
Okay, and he's also younger than Adrian Peterson. He's not even 30 yet. Adrian Peterson is way past that time where NFL backs are supposed to be productive and playing. And I think that at 29, you're still probably you're right there in your prime still. He's like a few years removed. He's got way less carries. How many years has he been in the league? I mean, not
at least 7 years.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's still there for him when you're looking at him rushing up near like 5 yards a carry, even though it is behind one of the best offensive lines in the league.
That was 3 years ago.
Alfred Morris has been in the league since 2011 or 12, I believe.
So 7 years.
Yeah, he came in 2012. So he was been with Washington and Dallas, the only two teams he's been with. He played all 14 games in Dallas in 2016 and 2017. In 2017, because of the absence of Elliott for so long, he did have 115 attempts rushing, and he almost eclipsed 600 yards.
And I also
he had a 4.8 rush average, by the way, when he was in the game.
Yeah, I just want to clarify too. I didn't contradict myself. It was two separate instances. Last on the over and under segment, they were asking if Adrian Peterson was going to get to 10, and I took the under because I don't think he can last a full season. Over here, we're talking about how Jerick McKinnon injury opens up an opportunity for a guy to be productive. If you had asked me the same question about Adrian Peterson, I would have said yes. Do I think that Alfred Morris can withstand a whole season? Same response to Adrian Peterson. He's an older guy that's been around in the league, but he can still be productive. So I think it's similar upside to Adrian Peterson. Actually, that's all I'm saying.
I think the only,
but with the same risk.
I think the only thing that Alfred Morris has going for him is the familiarity with the offensive coordinator and the offenses he's going to go into. Yeah. But I think it's going to be a split decision in that backfield or a split carry situation with Breida and Alfred
because
Morris.
Breida's proven.
They're not going to put a full 200 carry workload on Alfred Morris.
From what I understand, the better pass catcher is Breida. So in that offense, they're gonna catch balls, right?
Yeah. I mean, in that West Coast offense, that's the hope
for Jerick McKinnon. That's why everyone was so high on Jerick McKinnon. Hyde caught like 60 balls or whatever in that system. So maybe there's Breida as the pass catcher. I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. In 2017,
I won't be like reaching on Alfred Morris.
This is what Breida did with his 105 attempts last year. He had 460 yards rushing. He averaged 4.4 yards a carry.
So Matt Breida with more rushing yards than Christian McCaffrey.
So he had 2 touchdowns. Now, don't forget we had Carlos Hyde there last year. But I kind of do like round. I do like Alfred Morris there, and I think Matt Breida and Alfred Morris are different types of running backs. But I like Alfred Morris there. I think because he's on the tail end of his career, he's gonna push. He's gonna push hard. He's gonna run hard. He's gonna do well. And at the end of the day, San Francisco is gonna have to run the ball. Like you can't get away from the running game. And I think Breida is probably the guy that they're gonna end up taking a lot of those receptions that McKinnon was going to get. So you're going to see more of a ground and pound from Morris, but you'll see more of an air and ground.
He runs that the stretch offense, so we'll see. It's not going to be a traditional ground, I formation, just run right up the gut. It's not going to be that. Alfred Morris and Breida both fit kind of that similar, like slasher kind of, running style. They're not going to just lower their head and run through the line. So they both could be effective. And Breida with the pass catching ability, I think is going to benefit him. I really don't like. I really don't like either one of them there. I'm definitely not on my fantasy team. I'm not looking to grab either one, but I think they can be productive.
Well, here's
as a flex option, or if another injury happens, to go and get a guy like that.
A flyer, you mean pick him up to play him. But here's the thing, too, that you know, you look up the stats, those two guys, for anybody before McKinnon injury, were going undrafted. So we're talking about these guys. Maybe Breda was picked up late or something, but Alfred Morris is somebody who's going to be on the waiver wires that people are going to snatch up. And in my opinion, if you're holding on to somebody as a bench player for, you know, maybe a backup quarterback or a bench player just to play in for someone's bye week, I think you switch him out and you pick up Morris because he has the opportunity at least to do some fantasy damage for you in the case of a future injury. And here's the thing: is Breda's banged up a little bit right now, so we can see Sunday an Alfred Morris start over Breda just based on him being 100%. So that's my opinion on it. Am I saying he should be in your starting lineup every week? Absolutely not.
No, but if you have the roster spot open,
Yeah.
if you have a free spot, that's not a bad person to put on your bench.
Yeah, I agree.
And to have in case of emergency. I'd like to bring up, like, just to change topics on this, on some last minute moves. We saw a big move this week with the trade of Khalil Mack, and I think that it's going to have a lot of fantasy implications, not just for that defense, because I think that defense now top 5 defense in the football, or in the NFL. But I also think that for Jordan Howard, he's gonna get a lot more touches, a lot more opportunities now.
Be on the field more.
He's gonna be on the field more,
Just
and I
in
think
terms
that
of
they're
positive
not.
game script. That's what you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have shorter drives by the opposing offense, so they're gonna have more drives per game.
Maybe more turnovers.
Per game. Might have more turnovers. I think that they're going to maybe have a lot of short fields because of those turnovers. We see what pass rushers can change the dynamic of a defense. Like before Khalil Mack, they had some good pass rushers on the team. They had their first round pick last year, Leonard Floyd, who I think now doesn't have to get double teamed. Now they're going to have to worry about Khalil Mack on the other side. It's going to allow him to grow. On the back end of things, it helps the defensive backs out. You're going to see Prince Mukamura be able to make more plays. But for Jordan Howard's sake, I think that offense is not going to be a team. They're not going to give Mitchell Trubisky the keys to the car and say, get us to the promised land. They're going to ground and pound. They're going to control the clock, and they're going to play good defense. And I think we can see something like the Bears of the 90s and the 80s, where they have just that stellar defense and they can just control the clock.
Well,
I think Jordan Howard.
You talk 80s and 90s, and I'm agreeing with you here. We talk 80s and 90s, but don't forget,
even go back
the Bears got to the Super Bowl against the Colts based off of defense alone. Defense and special teams.
People, Danny Trevathan is there. They have really good pieces on that defense, and the addition of Khalil Mack, they're going to be really good this year.
You got Leonard Floyd on the new rookie Roquan Smith, so he's going to have that's actually going to take a lot of pressure off of Roquan,
off of those guys,
which is huge because everybody had their sights on Roquan Smith, especially because of the holdout in preseason. Now he's allowed to just play the game of football because everybody's going to have their eyes on Khalil Mack in a new home. You know that.
And anytime you see a really good defense, a really stellar defense, like, typically you're going to see a pretty good running game to go with that.
Look at the Baltimore Ravens when they won their Super Bowl II.
Ravens.
Defense and running game did it all. So
the Jets went to 2. I mean, it's my own team, so I follow them. I know a lot more, but they got to 2 AFC Championship games back to back based on a defense and running the football.
Look at the New York Giants.
Mark Sanchez look at the Giants.
Front 4, and they did it.
At least with the first Super Bowl. The second Super Bowl, Manning took them there, but the first Super Bowl, like, that was that front 4, allowing the offense to be able to run the ball with Tiki Barber and Brandon Jacobs.
Yeah, I agree.
Take pressure off them. Manning didn't have to do a lot. And that's where I think Mitchell Trubisky is kind of in that role now, where he's not going to be asked to do a lot. He's going to ask to turn the ball over, not turn the ball over, to hand the ball off to Jordan Howard, or to have very controlled passes, to Trey Burton, Allen Robinson.
I think what it's going to do is it's going to allow them to not have, like you said there, risky passes, because they're not going to be going late into the games so far behind where they're going to have to make them. So
exactly.
I mean, let's talk about another move. Let's talk about the Ravens and dropping Brashard Perriman. All right, that's very recent, and Brashard Perriman himself Was he a big key factor in the Ravens offense? No, but where have the Ravens lacked, especially in the past couple of years, and that's at the receiving core. And with the emergence of Crabtree now there, and the John Brown, I think Perryman was far outmatched by his co-receivers, and now you don't have to worry about someone like Perryman coming in and stealing receptions from Crabtree and stealing receptions from John Brown, because guess what? He's not in the picture anymore. And I like the receiving core, and I think I stated it last week, and if I didn't, I'm going to say it now, that I really do like that Baltimore Ravens offense in terms of receiving.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's a huge move. I think it's just solidifying things that we kind of already knew. Snead is there. Don't forget that. You have Willie Snead, Michael Crabtree, John Brown.
Yeah.
People weren't talking about Rashad Perryman, drafting him or expecting big things from him. He's kind of like a Kevin White. They really a lot of talent coming into the NFL and just couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
And really having had that opportunity to show us what they could do with the full season. And I think that with the addition of Crabtree and Brown, that the Ravens kind of just said sorry and cut bait. So
well, let's move on to talking about indecisive teams, because we talked about 3 good wide receivers there, and I think it's a good kickoff point too, is the Baltimore Ravens receiving core. Who feeds in that system the most, receiver wise?
So obviously I like Crabtree just because of the goal line, the red zone ability. He's a big physical receiver, but in this offense, I'm gonna have to go with John Brown. He had the most average yards per target in the air. He was the highest of all the wide receivers last year, and the highest quarterback on that side was Joe Flacco. So I see a lot of deep balls to John Brown. I think he's going to have the opportunity to shine there, where he wasn't able to in Arizona. So I think he's going to be the guy to own in that offense. I mean, we could see Willie Snead take that role, but I see more John Brown.
I agree with you on that one. I like Crabtree's red zone ability too. I mean, let's talk about someone like your team, the Jets, and I'll let Nick talk about his thoughts on the Jets here, because he brought up Sam Darnold. But that's another system, wide receiver wise, and even running back wise, on who's going to really be the one to stand out. So, I mean, Nick, pick one running back, wide receiver core there. Which one would you like out of those?
Of running backs or wide receivers on the Jets?
On the Jets, like which guy in that offensive scheme? Because somebody's got to score for the Jets. They're not going to throw 0 points. Who do you want to own?
Yeah, well, the piece that I think I was looking at initially was from the backfield, and that was Isaiah Crowell. But then in the preseason, we've seen Bilal, which we knew we were going to see him, and he's a good player when he's on the field too. But I think that they let Crowell come in and be the guy they signed him to be, and he gets a little bit more of the share of carries there, and for that reason I'm on him, and I think you can get him at a great value. I would be fine with him in the 7th or the 8th round. I think as somebody to round out as depth, and possibly have 1,000-yard season there.
Yeah.
For wide receivers, I mean, I don't know what we've seen so far. I haven't watched a lot of the Jets games. Maybe Chris has more to say on where the rapport has been with Darnold and his receivers. I mean, they're all playing together for the first time, and I don't know if one is going to emerge as his favorite target, as we saw last year with Robbie Anderson, and I don't remember who came in. Was it Bryce Petty?
Yeah, Petty was in for a bit.
There was somebody that came in, and when they just had a huge game together. So it's tough to say from the wide receivers. I think more tough with Terrell Pryor, with people that are viable targets.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say Enunwa is the one that's going to feed there. I think consistency wise, when he was healthy and playing that year before, he consistently was able to come down with the ball, big physical receiver in the red zone, in the clutch. Robbie Anderson, I do think is a great talent. I think you're going to see him hit some home runs this season. But if you want consistency week to week, Enunwa is probably going to be the guy this year.
I agree with you. I think that
touchdowns last year.
I mean, he had 1,000 yards, 10 or 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Year.
But look at all the. I mean, I don't have the stats up in front of me.
There was no one there. I mean, they traded for Curse.
There was ASJ, who's no longer there.
Yeah,
I mean,
but let's.
The Jets don't really use tight ends that much, so that's not really a big factor.
He was targeted a lot in the end zone.
Curse came in and was taking a lot of targets away, but Anunwa was hurt all last year. It was.
Yeah, it's Nick. You can tell them to be quiet. I'm gonna mute you.
I think that Quincy Anunwa, I think, is probably the guy to own there. But I think any of those can be any of those guys can be pretty effective in that role. I think that Sam Darnold liked to toss the ball around in college to a bunch of different receivers. So I think you're going to see a lot of that transition into the NFL with Anunwa. Curse is on the PUP list I think to start the season. But I think Terrell Pryor, Quincy Anunwa, and Robbie Anderson is a pretty deep receiving core, and they all have their own. They're all big guys. Quincy Anunwa was a former tight end. When he came into the league, he came in as a tight end. My only concern with him is his neck injury that he missed all last season.
I agree. I think that neck injury, but
I think he could be really effective in that system.
Yeah. Well, Nick's back. Let's skip over to one more team before we all share our week 1 fantasy studs and duds. And I want to talk same thing as we talked last year. Let's talk New England Patriots backfield.
Let's stay in the same division. AFC East. Here we go. Who knows? I mean, literally, it's a week-by-week committee with Bill Belichick. See, Jeremy Hill probably might get 2 games where he goes off and you're like, wow, he's going to be the lead, the lead rusher on this team. And then all of a sudden Rex Burkhead is starting the next 3 games, comes in. Who knows what they do with Sonny Michel as a rookie. He might take some carries away. They might sit him on the bench. Who knows? With it's been the biggest question mark since Corey Dillon was on the Patriots is who's going to be the starting running back there. They've gone by committee every year and it seemed to work out for them. So I don't think that's going to change that much this year. So,
I mean, I think I'm a little bit less even on talking about the running backs because I think we know what we expect from the running backs. You're going to get a lot of people like Burkhead's going to feed. If Sonny Michel gets rid of this little injury he's got, he's going to feed. They're all going to have their games. We know that, and it's hard to predict who that's going to be. So I don't even want to talk about running backs because I don't even think the Patriots are even at a point where they can give advice on who to pick up for fantasy and that. But what I'm thinking of is wide receivers. You've got Chris Hogan there. You've got Edelman coming in off a 4-game suspension. Obviously, Brady-Edelman connection is solid. You're guaranteed to get production out of those guys. So I'm not talking about Edelman, but is Chris Hogan somebody who's going to fizzle out by the end of this year? And I think he is. They've dropped a lot of players from their roster too. And Eric Decker retires. Malcolm Mitchell's gone.
Brandon Bolden's gone.
I think, he's a running back.
Mike Gillisley's gone.
We're talking about wide receivers. And I'm saying
huge pieces are gone.
Chris Hogan, I'm nervous to own him on my team. Like, I don't care about the 4 weeks Edelman's gone. When Edelman comes back, that guy becomes almost non-existent again because you look at somebody like Brandon Cooks last year.
I disagree with you. I actually think that Chris Hogan could be, and that offense is a deep threat. People forget about him, and he was effective last year, even with Edelman in there, Amendola in there. Like, he was still effective last year, and I mean, the guy's not going to be your wide receiver 1, but is he a bad guy to own as a flex option? I don't think so.
I'm actually
just picking this up. This happened about an hour ago. Chad Hansen, or third round draft pick by the New York Jets, just got released and got picked up by New England. You know how Brady and Belichick love their white receivers. This is another one.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, is Brady will spread the ball around. You still have Gronk there. You're gonna have Edelman, but I think that's just such a muddled thing. It's so hard for you to determine.
Jordan Matthews is there too.
Yeah, that's true. I just think it's so muddled that you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, Brady doesn't deal with bullshit. Brady will win.
Yeah.
He'll do whatever to win.
They're gonna throw to the wide receivers. They're gonna use Burkhead and they're gonna use James White. I mean, this is what we saw last year. Now they have healthy Gronk. Did they have healthy Gronk all last year? I'm not sure, but they'll be just fine. And I think Chris Hogan was a top 10 receiver for the game stretch that he was in there, wasn't he? He was injured as well, I believe, for like half the season.
Yeah, I mean that's just my opinion. I think on that team you own Gronk. I think you go for Edelman because you know what you're gonna get. You know what you're gonna get from him. And then I think after that, running back wise, you got to just decide on who you like there and hope that that's who gets the ball.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead.
The confidence in Rex Burkhead is why they moved Danny Amendola.
I mean,
is that not right? They how many targets did we see to Burkhead? I mean, Burkhead's really just come on in the last year.
But you're talking different position, complete different position.
Different position. I understand.
But I don't think that's the reason why they got rid of Amendola. I think you're gonna.
Amendola wanted to get paid.
It doesn't matter who you have in that backfield. Like Sony Michel is somebody they have confidence in, obviously, because they drafted high up for him. And so,
unless your name is Randy Moss, you're not getting paid as a wide receiver in New England.
They'll turn receivers in and out. So I agree. Let's close out week 2 segment with our studs and duds for week 1. And this is these studs and duds are based off of the matchups that we see. I'll kick my studs and duds off with my stud being Marcus Mariota. You've got first week matchup against the Dolphins. And Dolphins are just hot trash right now. I don't even know what to expect of the Dolphins this season except losing. To me, the Dolphins are the new Browns right now. Like that's how bad I think they are. So I see Marcus Mariota coming back, and I see him, taking it like he did at the end of the year to this season and flourishing. I see his receivers doing well, and I see a strong Derrick Henry coming through. So Mariota's my stud of the week.
Chris?
So for my stud of the week, I think we haven't seen him in 2 years, but Andrew Luck is going to come back, and he's going to come back with a vengeance. He's playing the Bengals, who I don't think they don't have a very competent defense. And I think that Andrew Luck is going to return to form, so I think you're going to see a big week out of him. Duds wise, I think the 49ers are going to put up a dud just as a whole against the Vikings. I think Garoppolo is going to get dropped back down to earth after his 6 game stretch last year. So I see that's my stud and dud. Nick?
For me, my stud is going to be Deshaun Watson in what should be a shootout against Tom Brady and the Patriots on the other side. I think this is his first game back from injury. Am I right? And I think he wants to come out this season and show that he's healthy and is one of the best young talents in football. And then for dud, I'm going to go with the Bills going up against a tough Baltimore D. I don't know if they're running AJ McCarron out there or the rookie, but I think we'll see both probably in that game.
I think Josh Allen's going to get the start. AJ McCarron just got traded yesterday.
Yeah, McCarron's gone. So it's Nate and Josh Allen. I think Allen may get the start, or he'll start the second half for sure. But I agree with you.
Yeah, that's going to be a shit show.
If Peterman is starting, everyone should play the Ravens defense in daily.
Yeah,
everyone. Because that guy, last time we saw him, threw 5 interceptions in the first half.
Agreed. I didn't say my dud, but I'm going to bring my dud all the way back around to Oakland running backs. Sitting there looking at Oakland running backs, you're looking at them getting pretty much stuffed by this Rams defense. I mean, we saw the big moves the Rams D made. And yeah, you've got a tough runner in Marshawn Lynch, but then you've got a tiny little running back in Muscle Hamster. And
I don't care how tough you are. You got Sam Darnold and Ndamukong Suh right up the middle.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you literally are going to get completely swallowed up each carry. It's going to be a tough ground game. They're going to have to turn to Derek Carr against the Rams, which again is going to be a tough one for them. So I think at the end of the day, RBs probably suffer the most in that equation. So that's our studs and duds for the week. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we're going to be doing this weekly every Saturday. I know it is Sunday today. We happen to have a break yesterday and weren't able to get together for this, but every Saturday morning we'll be posting up our Fantasy Oddcast, and the week-to-week Fantasy Oddcast. Now that the season's starting, we're going to kick off a nice recap of each week on stats-wise and see where we were with our studs and duds from the week before. Tune in again next week, Saturday morning, and we're looking at a 7 to sometime between 7 and 11 start Pacific time, live on Twitch, and it will also be uploaded by Saturday evening every day on YouTube.
Your local cable company. We're going to give you a 4-hour window. Just tune in when you can.
All right. Again, I'm used to be sober. Please feel free to subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch. You also see frequently during the week on Twitch playing games with both K-Zap and Tzatziki Sauce, also known as Feta Cheese. So tune in, watch a little PUBG, watch a little...
AKA Little Metaxa.
A lot of NHL. And again, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Lil Metaxa.
Thanks.
AKA...
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Little Greek Olive.
Little Greek Olive.